LBC weather, rain continuing for more northern and central areas, particularly heavy for the southeast of Scotland and northeast of England, a low of 4 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Holly Jones.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. LBC's Election Call with Eddie Mair.
Well, here it is, every Monday to Thursday at 6, LBC's Election Call, where I shut up and you speak to the politicians. Tonight, Chris Philp from the Conservatives. He is a Justice Minister, and between 2015 and 2017, he was a member of the Treasury Select Committee. What do you want to ask him? 0345 6060 973. You can text 84850 or tweet at LBC. We are live on LBC, as you'll have noticed, and you can watch the whole of Election Call on the LBC website, lbc.co.uk. You can watch us too on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and by trying to get past LBC security and actually coming to the studio in person. Your election call to Chris, please don't try that, by the way. Your election call to Chris Philp from the Conservatives, 0345 6060 973. You're very welcome. How are you?
Very good, thank you. I've been on the campaign trail today, so it's nice to get out of the cold and the rain. OK, there'll be no politics for the next hour. It'll be fine. Craig is first in Camden. Hi, Craig. What's your question?
Hi there, Eddie. So my question is, after 9 years of Conservative government, how can anyone trust a word that comes from a Conservative leader?
Well, thanks for the question, Craig. When the Conservatives came to office 9 years ago, obviously in coalition with the Lib Dems initially, there was a promise to put Britain's finances back in order, and that has by and large been done. The deficit has come from 10% of GDP down to less than 2% of GDP. We've averted the bankruptcy that was facing us, but at the same time, we've created record numbers of jobs. There are now 75% of the working age population in work. That is a record level. Unemployment is at a 45-year low. It's lower than it's been during my lifetime. So the promises made in 2010 to make the economy strong and to put the public finances under control have been met. But so is the promise to look after...
That's nonsense, though. And
what bit's nonsense? Tell me which of those figures is not correct.
So what's the level of debt at the moment?
Well, the level of debt
What's
is...
the level of national debt?
See, there's a difference between debt and deficit. The level of debt is about 88% of GDP, and it's falling.
How many trillion
and it's falling.
is that debt?
It's just under 2 trillion, and it's falling as a proportion of GDP. But you can't obviously
cut...
cut...
It's been rising for the last 9 years.
Well, obviously you can't cut debt until you've eliminated the deficit. We've now done that after 9 difficult years, and debt over GDP is now falling. We've done the responsible thing. By the way, every one of those measures we took over those 9 years to put the public finances back in order was opposed by the Labour Party, and the plans they're now laying out, the 1.2 trillion of extra expenditure, would put us right back where we started on the verge of bankruptcy.
Craig, what's your problem with their record?
Well, this is so weird. Do you want me to start, really? I'll tell you what, let's start back with the coalition, seeing how it was mentioned. So we have David Cameron, who I'm sure people remember when he did his interview on Question Time, said that he wouldn't cut child tax credits. He then cut that. He said that the railway in the north, that didn't happen. He said there would be 200,000 starter homes built. None have been built. 0. None whatsoever. So that's Cameron's record. Then you've got Boris's where, well, it's just farcical, really, to even suggest that he's honest. He said that delaying Brexit would cost $1 billion a month, which is nonsense. He said that Parliament proved the deal and that he didn't want an election, but he had to call an election because Parliament didn't pass the deal. He then kicked out 21 of his own MPs and lost his majority. So the idea that Parliament was frustrating the process is a farce because he created the situation he found himself in. He has said that he's going to build 40 new hospitals, which has turned out to be 6. And he recently said that the building has started, and then came back and said that they haven't started, and that if he's elected, they'll start building them. There was the big lie on the bus, which everyone can remember. The fact that NHS spending has the biggest rise in history, which is a nonsense. He said that Turkey was going to join the EU, then denied that he ever said that after he co-signed a letter stating that the only way to stop having a land border with Turkey was to leave the EU. There's the fact-checking on Twitter from Conservative HQ. making up websites attacking Labour. There's what else?
Let's see. Since you've run out of breath, let me while you gather your breath, let me respond to one or two of those points, if I may.
Let's get a response first, Craig. Let's get a response. You can come back, I promise you.
Let's give Craig a chance to gather his breath. So let me just pick up a few of those examples, which I, needless to say, don't agree with. You mentioned...
which ones? What about 200,000 starter homes that were never built?
Yes, I was going to start with housing. So what happened was the starter homes were announced, I think it was in about 4 or 5 years ago. It's hit by the Cameron government, as Craig says. The Theresa May government subsequently decided to emphasise, for example, housing association homes and affordable housing. And as a consequence, the money was spent there, and huge numbers of affordable homes and housing association homes were built as a result. And if you want to look at the housing record, when Labour left office in 2010, house building across the UK had collapsed to 125,000 a year. It's now back up to, I think the most recent figures were 220,000 a year, many of which were affordable. So,
all right, Craig's now got his breath back. Let's
hang on a second. I've got some other questions to answer.
If I may, Craig, you want to come back?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, you haven't addressed starter homes. You said 200,000 would be built. None have been built.
Well, I've pointed out that instead, under the Theresa May government, right, not David Cameron, Theresa May, she had a different approach, which was to build affordable and housing association homes instead of starter homes, and which are good. They're cheap and affordable to people, as the name implies. Total house building has gone up. It's getting close to doubled relative to where Labour left it behind, and the number of first-time buyers is at a 12-year high. So I will defend our record on housing to the last. Now, you mentioned some points about what Boris has said and can you trust him? And you mentioned Brexit as well. So
can you trust him?
Yes, I can trust him. So, for example...
Because he gave you a job, or...?
No, I mean, I can trust him regardless of that, to be quite honest. So on Brexit, he said he would renegotiate an improved deal with the European Union. Nobody believed it was possible. Media commentators... Well, I believed it, but nobody.
Just you.
The commentariat and opposition MPs didn't believe it was possible, and yet within 100 days of getting into office, he managed to do it. He managed to renegotiate and improve the deal that most people thought was not possible. And in terms of the parliamentary situation, which Craig referred to, I mean, Parliament has repeatedly, over the past couple of years, voted to frustrate the Brexit process in different ways, whether it's Standing Order 24 motions, whether it's... Let me just finish, Craig. Craig, let me finish. Voting against Theresa May's deal repeatedly, bringing forward the Ben Act, which sort of tried to frustrate the leave on the 31st of October plan. And you mentioned Craig, let me finish.
No. Let's hear a little more from Craig, if we may. Craig, go on.
You say it's Parliament, but again, Theresa May called an election 2 years ago because she wanted to consolidate power, and we were told, she's going to get this great majority and she'll get Brexit done and all that nonsense. And look what happened. That wasn't Parliament frustrating the process. It's the fact that the people did not believe in her plan.
All right, Craig, you've had a fair crack of the whip. I want to get on to Mehdi now in Tower Hamlets. Hello, Mehdi.
Hi, Eddie.
Hi.
Chris, before I ask you the question, if you can't be honest with an answer, please don't answer. Just tell me that maybe I'm not going to answer. Can you trust Boris Johnson about NHS?
I can answer the question. The answer is yes. He's obviously announced substantially increased funding for the NHS in the spending review a couple of months ago, which was the formal government announcing of policy.
On a trade deal with...
Oh, on that. Right. So, just on the spending first, then I'll talk about the trade deal.
Don't worry about
he wants to know about the trade deal.
Okay. So, on the trade deal, I've actually got the documents in front of me, this dossier which Jeremy Corbyn flourished earlier today. And all of Jeremy Corbyn's claims about the NHS being, having been sold down the river to the Americans as part of a trade deal is complete nonsense. I've got the relevant passages in front of me, Chris, and it's just not in there.
Trump himself said that NHS and everything will be included in the trade talk. Did he not say that?
No, the NHS is not on the table.
I'm sorry, Chris. That's a lie. Because Donald Trump, he said in a press conference, NHS will be included in the trade talk. Are you denying that?
Yeah, the NHS,
are you denying that?
The NHS, yes, I do. The NHS is not on the table.
Donald Trump say it?
Well, I don't know. I mean, Donald Trump can say what he's like. I can't speak for Donald Trump, but I can only speak for the UK government.
That he said it or not? Are you denying that he said it or not?
I can tell you categorically.
When Theresa May was standing next to him, he said that. Are you denying that?
What, Donald Trump you're talking about?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Donald Trump can say what he likes. I mean, that's not the position of the UK government. Our position is that the NHS is not on the table. We want to see lower drug prices. We want to see the NHS remain in public ownership, universal, free at the point of delivery. Boris Johnson and the entire Conservative Party have been completely clear the NHS is not up for grabs. We cherish it. We're protecting it. We're giving it more funding. And I've got these, let me finish, Mehdi. I've got these documents in front of me. There is nothing in them at all which commits the UK government to jeopardising the NHS.
You guys are trying to fool people on that. But can I just ask you something completely different?
Sure.
From NHS?
Sure.
Austerity for the last 9 years. Have you been impacted by this austerity at all?
Well, I talk to people all the time.
Forget about talking to people. I'm asking you as an individual. Have you been impacted by austerity at all?
Yeah, so, I mean, I use public services like other people. Let me give you an example, a very personal example. 6 years ago, in 2013, my twin children were born very prematurely at 25 weeks and 1 day, which you all know is unbelievably premature. They were looked after by the NHS at UCLH here in the centre of London, one of the 4 level 1 neonatal intensive care units in London, and they received unbelievably good care. And that is because funding the NHS properly is important. And without that care, there is no question that they wouldn't have survived.
Mary's question was, have you personally been affected by austerity?
Well, I mean, I used public services the whole time. So if by austerity you mean the funding for public services, which I guess you do, then I use public services like other people do all the time, like the NHS.
But have you been affected by austerity is his question.
Well, I mean, I think all of us would like to see more money on public services, like more money for police, etc. So I like all of your listeners, experience public services and would all like to see as much money as possible.
But that's not an answer to his question, though, is it? He's just wondering whether you personally, because obviously a lot of people have been personally affected by austerity. And is that what you want to get at, Mehdi?
Eddie, have you been in a situation where you have been told you have to pay like bedroom tax that you guys introduced? Have you been impacted by that at all, Chris, or any of your colleagues on Conservative government or any of the MPs?
Well, I guess you can only talk for you. You can only talk for yourself. Have you personally been affected by austerity?
So, for example, there was the removal of child benefit, which was paid to everybody before. It's now only paid to people earning less than, I think it's something like, is it £50,000 or £60,000? So as an MP, I obviously earn a little bit more than that. So I don't get that child benefit, which I would have done previously. For example, clearly, in terms of tax, there have been changes to tax like VAT, which affect everybody. So so I don't get. So I've got 2 children, as I say. I don't get child benefit now in the way that I would have done 10 years ago. So,
but that's the only way that you can think of that you've been affected by austerity.
Well, as I say, we all use public services, including me. So
have you noticed that public services have been worse?
No, I wouldn't say so.
So you haven't really been affected by it then?
Well, because the Conservative government, has managed to responsibly save money where it's needed to balance the books, which was necessary, while maintaining the standard of public services. And I think that's something that the government can be proud of.
All right, let me bring Mehdi, you're talking constantly, I'm afraid. Let me bring you back in. I'll let you have the final word in this section. Go ahead.
Chris is saying he balanced the books. You've been borrowing, while austerity going, you've been borrowing more money than Labour ever did in the last 13 years they were in power.
All right, Mehdi, thank you very much for that. Have you got a question for Chris Philp from the Conservatives? Now is the time to ask. It's 0345 60 973 616. Here's an update from Holly Jones.
The broadcaster and critic Clive James has died at the age of 80 after his diagnosis with leukemia, kidney failure and lung disease nearly 10 years ago. Jeremy Corbyn claims to have found proof the Conservatives are putting the NHS on the table in US trade talks, which the Tories have denied. Tata Steel says up to 1,000 jobs in the UK are among 3,000 expected to be cut across its European operations. LBC weather, rain continuing for more northern and central areas, particularly heavy for the southeast of Scotland and northeast of England, a low of 4 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm J-Louise Knight, and the clockwise M25 is crawling from London Coney at 22 to Potters Bar at 24 after a car broke down earlier. Still clockwise on the Essex stretch, it's heavy towards 28 for the A12. A van's broken down on the exit Slip Road. An earlier accident on the A2 has left queues out of town from Falconwood to Bean. A water main just burst in Erith. It shut the A206 Queen's Road northbound from Thanet Road to the Erith roundabout. And there are long delays around the Gants Hill roundabout as a building fire has shut Cranbrook Road road both ways. On the trains, London Overground have severe delays from Stratford to Richmond and Clapham Junction, and Thameslink are disrupted due to a points failure between St Pancras and Finsbury Park.
This is LBC.
Have you ever had a night in and as you're sat there, realised you're missing out on something big, knowing full well that your friends are out having fun without you, and thought, this is flipping brilliant? Well, then you've experienced JOMO, the joy of missing out. So big up the JOMO with the Domino's Big Night In deal. That's 2 medium pizzas, wedges, cookies and a 1.25 litre bottle of drink, all for $24.99. Domino's, the official food of everything.
Offer ends 1st Jan 2020, subject to availability at participating stores only. T's and C's apply. See boring legal stuff at domino's.co.uk.
Election 2019. Continuous coverage on LBC.
Calling all hard-working minicab drivers. Are you the very best London has to offer? Yes? Then Greyhound Cars, one of South London's oldest and most progressive minicab companies, want to speak to you. Spend less time travelling to jobs and more time earning money. With a very busy day circuit, we have high demand and are now offering great bonuses and mileage rates for the very best drivers. You could pay as low as 10% commission. Start today at greyhoundcars.co.uk.
Dell's biggest Black Friday ever is on. Save up to £700 on Windows 10 laptops and desktops, plus up to 50% off across our award-winning monitors, all with free delivery. Call 0800 085 4878 to talk to a Dell advisor today. That's 0800 085 4878. Or visit dell.co.uk/SB deals for details on the best offers in Dell's biggest Black Friday ever. Limited time online offer. Hurry while stocks last. T's and C's apply.
You know the trainers I really wanted? I got them 70% off.
Wow, that's amazing. Where from?
Online at Zalando. They have so many Cyber Week deals on right now.
Attention travellers, we have reached our final destination, Black Friday at Zalando.
Save up to 70% on thousands of shoes, accessories and clothing. Zalando. Free to be.
At Ring, we've reinvented the doorbell. So no matter where you are, you can watch over your home and the things you care about. Ring Video Doorbell streams HD video and two-way talk straight to your phone, so you can speak to whoever's at your door from anywhere.
Delivery.
Oh, great. Could you leave it with my neighbour, please?
Sure, no problem.
See, hear and speak to whoever's at your door from wherever you are with Ring Video Doorbell. For exclusive Black Friday offers on selected video doorbells and cameras, visit ring.com and major retailers.
Like all good tradespeople, Ford likes an early start too. That's why our Black Friday has already begun. Enjoy amazing savings across our hard-working range of new commercial vehicles. Save between £2,500 and £9,650 off the recommended retail price. Why wait until the 29th of November, when you can have that Black Friday feeling today? Plus, there's 0% APR representative on Ford Acquire. Search Ford Black Friday. Ford, backbone of Britain.
Exclusions apply. Combined promotions available till 30th of November 2019 at participating dealers. For Ford Acquire, finance subject to status and deposit restrictions apply. Free post Ford credit.
LBC's election call. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC. Call 0345 6060 973. LBC's election call with Eddie Mair.
It's Chris Philp from the Conservatives tonight, and David in Manchester has a question. Hi, David. What do you want to ask?
Good evening, Eddie. Good evening, Chris.
Hi, David.
So the surprise announcement from Labour regarding scrapping the IL35 policy today, I'm keen to know if the Conservative Party plan to follow suit, as they are, or used to be, the kind of party for business and innovation.
Well, we're definitely still the party for business and innovation. We're the ones who've cut corporation tax from 28% down to 19%. We're the ones that have lifted the tax-free allowance up to $12,500, which is a tax cut for everybody. But on IR35, I don't think we plan to follow Labour and to have a sort of blanket abolition. I think that's just one of Labour's sort of rather desperate stunts, like the $58 billion for WASPI.
Well, let's talk about what you will do.
Well, IR35 is designed to draw what I acknowledge is a difficult distinction. I'd be interested to hear David's personal experience, because I suspect you may be a contractor, and I'd like to hear your story. But you've got to draw quite a careful line, which is difficult to do, between people who are basically employees and should be taxed as employees. And so, for example, if someone works for the same company for like 2 years, say, and that company only, they're kind of pretty clearly an employee. But somewhere, clearly people become self-employed contractors. And my wife actually used to work in this way after she left a Big Four accountancy consultancy firm. Clearly, at some point you become contractors and you should be taxed differently as a sort of self-employed entrepreneur. Drawing that line is what IR35 seeks to do, and getting the detail right is important. So I'd be interested to hear, David, what your sort of personal experience is, what your story is, and whether you feel the line is in the right place, and if not, how could it be drawn a little bit differently?
So I'm a consultant at the moment. Well, I have been for a few years. I can be one part of the year working for a startup, and then potentially working for a big company. And this can change from month to month or week to week. But just to put it in context, so the creative industries put £5.2 billion into the economy last year, and we know that this is serviced quite heavily with freelancers and contractors. And a lot of the people that I speak to, and I know that the grey area of kind of what the Conservatives are going to do with IR35 is a real big kind of pain point. So I'm looking for a bit of understanding and clarity. So I guess it sounds like you're not going to be reviewing it or kind of following suit with Labour.
Well, we're definitely not going to do the blanket abolition. But where do you feel...
Are you going to review it?
Well, I think the details, we always keep isn't there an HMRC website where you can put in your particulars and it gives you advice on which side of the line you fall. But David, in your case, David, do you tend to work for one client at a time, or do you service multiple clients? And what's your average engagement length?
So it varies. So I have multiple clients, and the length varies on project.
What's the kind of maximum you might do?
6 months.
Okay,
sounds pretty freelance to me. But I'm not an expert.
And how do you think IR35 will catch you? Because it sounds like you are, given the maximum engagement length is 6 months, and you're servicing multiple clients. I mean, I don't want to give like tax advice over the radio, but
of course,
it sounds like you ought to qualify as a contractor.
Yeah, but it's the amount of grey area that it still feels.
It's
like
the uncertainty, David. You want cleared up.
It is the uncertainty, and it just caught my eye today. The surprise announcement by Labour, and at the minute I'm a classic floating. I have no tribalism within parties, so I'm just a bit of a classic floating voter right now. And that's
all right, David, you've had a go, and I don't think you're going to get a policy commitment.
But I would definitely urge David to look at the HMRC website and get the guidance there, and also, of course, talk to your accountant.
Thank you. 0345 6060 973. If you have a question for Chris Philp from the Conservatives. Alex next in Leeds. Hello, Alex.
Good evening, Eddie, and good evening, Chris. Seems like trust is at the heart of this general election. So I'd just like to ask Chris regarding the Windrush scandal that emerged as a result of the hostile environment. If you are fortunate to be re-elected to power, when do you expect to resolve the compensation of the Windrush victims? Because according to certain media articles and reports, first of all, victims, many of them elderly, are dying, so they're not getting the compensation they deserve. And in some cases, the compensation figure set up by the £200 million fund, that has also been questioned about how much they're going to receive. So could you just quickly address those main points, please?
Yeah, so look, I mean, I think the Windrush compensation, it's right that we pay that because these people obviously tragically suffered adverse consequences because of because they'd been wrongly identified as not supposed to be here. So it was a mistake. I think the government did the right thing by apologising immediately and setting up this compensation fund. I don't know what the deadline is to when all the compensation will be paid by. I hope it happens as quickly as possible. I don't see why it should take too much longer because this all obviously came out a year or even a year or two ago. But I welcome the fact the government are paying the compensation and have apologised. Half these cases arose obviously under the post-2010 under the Conservative government. About half the cases were under the previous Labour government. But we did the right thing by apologising immediately and setting up the compensation fund.
Alex, what do you think of the answer?
I just need to correct him on a couple of points. Yes, the Conservative government under Theresa May did apologise, but you didn't apologise immediately. It wasn't for the campaigning journalism of Amelia Gentleman of The Guardian, who I think first broke the report, I think may have been April last year, or maybe even before that. and that was broadcast, as I said, in the Guardian, both broadsheet and on its website. It eventually took various different scandals before the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary, as then, came to dispatch box and addressed the issue. So there wasn't an immediate apology on behalf of the Windrush generation and the victims of that hostile environment, many of whom were deported incorrectly, and so on and so forth. So that's not exactly true. I do take the point that measures are being taken, but as I said, many of the victims are elderly and are dying as we speak. So,
well, I think you're right.
Trust me. If I don't have the faith and the confidence that you assert, but I take you at your word, but I don't have confidence in it.
All right, Alex, thank you for that. I want to move on to a text from Dave in Faversham. Have people been driven to food banks because they have a cash flow problem?
Well, food bank use happens for different reasons. One of those is just as people move on and off benefits. Sometimes the sort of last paycheck and the first benefit check don't quite line up, and vice versa as people
universal
move
credit, etc.
off benefits into work. So you sometimes get those sort of transitions don't quite work. For reasons that nobody's fault, it's just difficult to get them all to line up. So that sometimes happens, which is why universal credit has been kind of sort of successively fine-tuned over the last 12 months to try and...
You've been started off disastrously and got slightly better.
That isn't quite how I'd characterise it.
Have people been driven to food banks because they have a cash flow problem, says Dave?
Well, I think different people have different reasons, but it tends to be, when I've spoken to people that run food banks, it tends to be a timing issue, which is what the word cash flow implies. As I say, because payments don't quite, the last paycheck and the first benefit claimant, or the last benefit claimant and claiming the first paycheck don't quite line up, and there's a gap.
Forgive me, we have Ayrton in Cheshunt who says, has the Conservative manifesto been independently costed? And if so, how much will be financed by additional borrowing?
So the OBR don't score party manifestos, but it has been balanced. I've got the figures here in front of me.
You could have had it independently costed, though, couldn't you? You could have done that.
Well, typically party manifestos don't get sort of audited by an accountant. No one's ever done that. What they do get, obviously, is massive scrutiny from, obviously, journalists like you and, obviously, people like the IFS, the Institute for Fiscal Studies, look at them and comment on them, as Paul Johnson has been doing. He asks, the question was, I think, does it add to debt? So in terms,
will it be financed by additional borrowing?
So the current revenue spending, that is to say day-to-day spending for teacher salaries and day-to-day spending, will remain in balance, and the proposals in the budget are fiscally neutral. There are some tax-raising measures, particularly not cutting corporation tax as had been planned, and that pays for the various day-to-day spending increases. What might be, or what probably will be funded by borrowing, is a limited amount of capital spending, so investment in infrastructure, because that makes sense. Interest rates are very low, so using that money to fund new roads and railways and all that kind of thing is a good idea, but within very strict limits. The difference between these proposals, which are responsible and properly costed, and Labour's proposals, is they have no limit on capital expenditure. They're going to blow, I think, 500 or 600 billion, and they're going to be spending £80 billion a year on revenue spending, which all of us will have, which is a vast amount of money, which all of us will have to pay for via higher taxes, as that interview the other day with Jeremy Corbyn brutally exposed. All of us will pay the price for that, to the tune of £2,400 per year each.
You've maybe done a better job of costing their manifesto than your own.
Well, I've got our numbers here. I'm happy to answer questions on any of them.
OK, well, it's half an hour left. If you've got a question for Chris Philp from the Conservatives, 0345 6060 973. Here's the news from Holly Jones.
Jeremy Corbyn says he's found proof of secret talks between the government and the US about selling off parts of the NHS. The Conservatives are denying the claims, with Boris Johnson calling it total nonsense. Former Tory Deputy Prime Minister Lord Heseltine is urging people to vote for the Liberal Democrats, who want to cancel Brexit. The broadcaster and critic Clive James has died at the age of 80. The Australian-born star was diagnosed with leukemia, kidney failure and lung disease nearly 10 years ago. His family say he passed away at his home in Cambridge. Gordon Ramsay and Jamie Oliver have been leading tributes to TV chef Gary Rhodes, who's died aged 59. He was suddenly taken ill during filming for a new TV show in Dubai. LBC weather, rain continuing for more northern and central areas tonight. Heavy for southeast Scotland and the northeast of England, a low of 4 degrees.
This is LBC. Follow live, continuous coverage of LBC Election 2019.
We'll examine the party policies and check the facts.
Hearing from you about the issues that matter.
I really don't know. Don't want to waste my vote because it means so much right now.
Plus, get all the news you need about the general election in 20 minutes, every 20 minutes, on LBC's brand new sister station, LBC News.
And from now until polling day, LBC's range of podcasts will be speaking directly to those fighting for power. Listen on Global Player or wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't miss a moment. LBC Election 2019.
This is the Survivalist Network. It's Z-Day plus 17. I haven't slept for days. My zombie neighbour just tried to bite my arm off. Luckily, he couldn't get his infected fingers past the high tensile steel of my Toyota Hilux Invincible. That £199 per month with 0% APR representative is feeling like excellent value now. Get to a Toyota Hilux Invincible. You'll be fine.
0% APR representative on new sales of Hilux Invincible over 42 months. £199 per month. Customer deposit of £9,701 when financed through Access Toyota by 16th December 2019. £12,525 optional final payment. Subject to status to over 18s. Indemnities may be required. Conditions apply. Toyota Financial Services.
Hiya, Johnny from Solihull News. I'm in a right party mood today, mate. It was a roll down in last Saturday's lotto draw, and thousands of you won a bigger share of the jackpot. The shop's been buzzing with winners. Come on, Sandra, let's crank up them tunes.
Lotto, celebrating 25 years of the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
I'm Douglas Murray. In my new book, The Madness of Crowds, I seek to inject some sense into the discussion around the 21st century's most divisive issues and call for free speech and sanity in an age of mass hysteria. The Madness of Crowds is available now.
Is 2019 the most confusing year ever? Fake lips, speaking fake news, eating fake meat. Let's put it to a vote. After vote, after vote. But are we being listened to by our home devices?
No.
They don't have the answer. Get past the confusion with the Confused.com Beat Your Renewal Quote Guarantee. If you can't beat your renewal quote, you get the difference plus £20. Don't be confused. Be Confused.com. T's and C's online, single annual policies only.
The John Lewis & Partners Black Friday event is now on. There are hundreds of great offers across home, electricals, fashion and nursery in-store and online. So if you're starting Christmas shopping early or you've got your eye on something for yourself, now's the perfect time. Click and collect from any of our shops and also at Waitrose & Partners. Terms and conditions apply. See in-store or online for details.
I'm sorry, you have progressive memory loss.
When you hear these words, the outlook is bleak, but we're working to change that. We're Recognition Health, the brain and mind experts, and we're running clinical studies in London and Guildford. If you volunteer, you'll receive free access to a new generation medication as well as comprehensive medical care. With your help, we can change the future of MCI, as in mild cognitive impairment and Alzheimer's disease.
You have progressive memory loss. But here's what we can do.
To find out more about Recognition Health and taking part, go to brainandmindexperts.com.
LBC's Election Call with Eddie Mair.
25 to 7, Ian Dale with you at 7, Tom Swarbrick at 10 with details of that opinion poll. Well, it's a gigantic opinion poll, which in 2017 got pretty close to identifying the actual election result. A lot of interest in that. Tom has those details from 10. Chris Philp here from the Conservatives tonight. And in the Midlands says, Eddie, tell Chris I'll vote Tory if they publish the Russian report before December the 11th.
Well, it hasn't been published because it hasn't gone through the full vetting process. There were some leaks, weren't there, reported about a week ago, and the leaks, which may or may not be accurate, seemed to suggest that there was nothing particularly contentious in it, but I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
A question from Sam in Herne Bay. Is Jacob Rees-Mogg okay? He seems to have disappeared.
Well, I haven't seen Jacob in South London, which is my neck of the woods, but I'm assuming he's okay.
But have you seen him anywhere? He used to be very high profile, and now he's just kind of nobody's seen him.
I haven't got him on. I haven't got him. He hasn't got an ankle tag, so I'm not sure what he's doing. I'm sure he's campaigning hard across the country.
But he hasn't really been very visible, has he? Is that because he sometimes says things that get him into trouble?
No, look, I mean, Jacob has is a character and is very erudite.
Do you think he's got a lot of common sense?
I think people in politics have different qualities. I think he's got common sense, but he's very very, like I say, very erudite, knows a lot about history and everything else. And in Parliament, you need people from all different backgrounds. And, he has his own background and his own view, which adds a lot to Parliament. I'm glad he's in there. And
but not to the campaign, it seems. Not to this.
I'd be very happy to have him in my neck of the woods. I think people would love to see him.
OK, June is in Birmingham. June, welcome. What's your question for Chris Philp?
Oh, hello. My question is, what can the Conservatives say to thousands of women like me, WASPy women, who've worked since they were 15 years of age, paid their full stamp, told they would be retiring at 60, only to be told that it was going to be 65. I've had no written notice. Nothing at all has come through the post to me. And then to add insult to injury, to be told not only 65, but you've got another year. So that'll be 51 years, if I live that long, to draw my pension. What can you say to thousands of women like me?
Well, look, I can certainly say, thank you for all of your hard work over a very long working career. But ultimately, I think this is about fairness, and men for many years have retired at 65, and it'll go up, as you know, to 66 and 67. I think for me it'll be 68. So I think it is fair and reasonable that men and women retire at the same age, particularly as women actually live a bit longer than men on average. So that equality of retirement age, I think, is fair. There's a question about notice. Now, the move to 65 was announced, I think, in the mid-1990s, around about 20 years ahead of time. And then there was a second move, I think it was in 2011, when the men's age went up to 66, 67, and the women's age moved up at the same time. And obviously, notice was given again then. So and there was some protection given so that people didn't move more than 18 months relative to where they thought they were in the mid-1990s. So I understand what you're saying and why you're upset and disappointed, but I think just having men and women.
Will you work 51 years before you draw your pension?
Well, I mean, I'm going to retire, as I say, at 68, based on my age, which is obviously older than people who are retiring today.
Why, while we've been in Europe, why, under both Conservative and Liberal, didn't you agree to the rest of Europe, to reduce the men's working pension age, like the rest of Europe, and increase the women's slightly? And what have you done with all that money that has been stolen from us?
Well, I mean, pension ages around Europe obviously vary. Given that people are living...
We're some of the highest pension ages.
Yeah, but people are living much, much longer now than they did before.
I have lost 2, maybe 3 of my friends in their early 60s this last 12 months, who, like me, have worked from when they were 15 years old. They have died in their early 60s without getting a penny. I think you've all behaved absolutely abominable. And I've just been waiting for the MPs to stand up in Parliament and make such an issue of it. Nobody has. We're a forgotten lot. I think you're all disgusting.
Well, do you agree that men and women should retire at the same age?
Sorry?
Do you think that men and women should retire at the same age?
I think when we were promised that we would be retiring at 60, I've raised a family. I've now got elderly parents to look after. This is another thing you've overlooked. We are a squeezed generation. We have children, we have grandchildren, and we have elderly parents. You are making a generation of carers work that extra 6 years, and it will, in the long run, be causing the state a lot of extra payment than what it would cost if they'd just given us our pensions and let us retire at 60.
But do you think that men and women should retire at the same age? Do you think that's a reasonable thing?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying you should have been fair and just brought the men's down and the women's up. But you couldn't resist seeing that money that you'd be saving and thinking, well, they won't cause a fuss. These women, they're middle-aged women. They'll just shut up and go away. And nobody spoke up for us. Nobody.
Well, I think
not
it's just
the unions, not any of the political parties.
Well, it's worth mentioning that where pensions obviously have the triple lock, so they go up by the higher of inflation, wage inflation, and general inflation.
But would you agree that in trying to correct an unfairness in terms of a parity between men and women, you've created another unfairness, a great unfairness for June and many other women? By the way, Lorraine in Maidstone says, please tell the Conservative chap that we didn't get 20 years' notice of the retirement age being raised. I received my letter when I was 57. I'm now 61.
Yeah, so clearly, I think it is reasonable that men and women retire at the same age. The question is what age that should be and how much notice is reasonable. So clearly you've got to strike
I still haven't received anything to say that I've got to work an extra year on top of that and it'll be 66.
And we've had other women tell us that as well during election
Yeah,
call.
so the DWP say they wrote to all the women affected back in about 2011, but obviously, it sounds like she's saying is it June?
June, and she's not the only one who's told us that.
Yeah, so when I've asked about this, they say they wrote to everybody, but it sounds like some people didn't get it, or I'm not going to question what June's saying.
You'll all ignore us at your peril, and all we're just wanting is fairness, even to say, just don't work that last year. You've worked till 65, and that's extra year that the Liberals and the Tories hatched up between them, Cameron and Clegg. I think that was just a disgusting extra year to just...
But it does apply to men as well as women. And when you start getting the pension, it does go up at, the higher of general inflation and wage inflation. And, it does go up quite a lot. And it has gone up. The pension payment has gone up by £1,600 a year since we came to office. So when you get there, the pension payments are more generous.
You don't agree, as some politicians are saying, that these women were robbed?
No, I wouldn't use that term. I mean, like I say, I think just retiring at the same age is an inherently sort of fair thing. You shouldn't treat men and women differently in this day and age. And I think 25 years' notice or 20 years' notice of the move to 65 was a reasonable notice period.
Right.
There has been this extra £1 billion spent just to soften the impact between 65 and it can't go to more than 66.5. So there has been some money spent just to ease that transition. But the fundamental principle that men and women should retire at the same age, I think, is a fair principle.
OK, a question from Rob on text. Please ask Chris, why should the LGBT community vote for a leader who referred to gay men as tank-top bum boys?
Well, it's the Conservatives who, David Cameron, his leader, legislated for equal marriage.
I'm talking about what your leader said.
Yeah, well, I mean, he uses colourful language sometimes. Let's look at actions rather than words.
Is that not offensive? Never mind colourful.
Look, like I say, he uses colourful language.
Do you find that offensive?
It's not. Well, I'm not from the LGBT community, so.
You have to be LGBT to find that offensive.
Well, I'm not going to offer a kind of running commentary on
I'm not asking for a running commentary. Rob in Liverpool asks, why should LGBT people vote for a leader who referred to gay men as tank-top bum boys, and you won't pass comment on the word?
Well, because actions speak louder than words, and in Parliament a few weeks ago, I voted personally, as did many Conservatives, for equal marriage in Northern Ireland.
What about your leader?
Well, like I say, Conservatives in office have legislated for equal marriage.
Is bum boys okay? Would you use that expression?
I personally wouldn't know, but I'm not going to tell Boris what words to use.
Why? Because he's your boss?
No, because it's people can choose their own language and they can make their own judgments.
And how offensive the language? How offensive would Boris Johnson have to be before you said don't say it?
Well, I'm not going to tell anyone what to say because I believe in free speech. What I can talk to,
free speech.
What I can talk to is the Conservatives' record in office legislating for gay marriage, and I personally voted for equal marriage in Northern Ireland just a few weeks ago, and I'm proud to have done so.
All right, Rob, thank you very much for that. You can text 84850, tweet at LBC, and call 0345 6060 973. It's Chris Philp from the Conservatives here till 7. You've got 15 minutes. Here's the news now from Holly Jones.
Boris Johnson has reiterated his promise that no part of the NHS will be sold off or privatised if the Conservatives win the election, after Jeremy Corbyn claimed he had evidence to the contrary. A man who stabbed 3 people at Manchester Victoria Station last New Year's Eve has been given a life sentence with a minimum of 11 years for attempted murder. The broadcaster Clive James has died at the age of 80 after being diagnosed with leukemia, kidney failure and lung disease nearly 10 years ago. LBC weather, rain continuing for more northern and central areas tonight. Heavy for southeast Scotland and the northeast of England, a low of 4 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Louise Knight, and the southbound M11 is queuing between Loughton at 5 and the North Seckler because of an accident closing one lane. The clockwise M25 is heavy from Maple Cross at 17 up to an accident before Watford at junction 19. One lane is shut. An earlier accident out of town on the A2 has left queues from Falconwood to Bean. We still have delays around Erith. A burst water main shut Queen's Road from Thanet Road to the Erith roundabout, and Cranbrook Road in Gants Hill stays shut near the Gants Hill roundabout because of a large fire in a building. On the trains, London Overground have severe delays from Stratford to Richmond and Clapham Junction, and Thameslink are still disrupted due to a points failure between St Pancras and Finsbury Park.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Ian Dale.
Cross question tonight at 8 with former Cabinet Minister Michael Fallon, Momentum's Laura Parker, Lib Dem candidate for Mayor of London Siobhan Benita, and Matthew Elliott, former Chief Executive of Vote Leave.
Ian Dale on LBC.
I'm Ben. I used to be homeless. I'd sleep in the train station, stuff newspapers in my clothes to keep warm. Sometimes I thought I wouldn't wake up. No one should have to live like this. The Crisis Christmas Centre was a safe place. We got hot meals, health checks and support. In the new year, they helped me find work and a home. This Christmas, you can reserve a place for someone who's homeless for just £28.87. Go to crisis.org.uk today and help someone like me take their first steps out of homelessness. Thank you.
At Ring, we've reinvented the doorbell. So no matter where you are, you can watch over your home and the things you care about. Ring Video Doorbell streams HD video and two-way talk straight to your phone, so you can speak to whoever's at your door from anywhere.
Delivery.
Oh, great. Could you leave it with my neighbour, please?
Sure, no problem.
See, hear and speak to whoever's at your door from wherever you are with Ring Video Doorbell. For exclusive Black Friday offers on selected video doorbells and cameras, visit ring.com and major retailers.
Final call for passengers on flight BU372 to Berlin.
The average time between a final call and boarding is 4 minutes and 53 seconds. An unofficial fact officially brought to you by Betfair Casino. Because when there's a chance...
Perfect.
There's always a chance. Make the most of any chance with 30 free spins. Betfair Casino. Play today.
Free spins apply to new Betfair Casino customers only. Available on selected games. T's and C's at betfair.com. 18+. BeGambleAware.org.
Like all good tradespeople, Ford likes an early start too. That's why our Black Friday has already begun. Enjoy amazing savings across our hard-working range of new commercial vehicles. Save between £2,500 and £9,650 off the recommended retail price. Why wait until the 29th of November when you can have that Black Friday feeling today? Plus, there's 0% APR representative on Ford Acquire. Search Ford Black Friday. Ford, backbone of Britain.
Exclusions apply. Combined promotions available till 30th of November 2019 at participating dealers. For Ford Acquire, finance subject to status and deposit restrictions apply. Free post Ford credit.
Raise your game for less with a Mercedes-Benz Vito. Now available with 3 trims, pure, progressive and premium. So it's easier than ever to get the features and functionality your business needs. And with unmissable deals across the range, it's more affordable than you might think. But hurry, all offers end January 31st, 2020. The impressive Mercedes-Benz Vito, keeping businesses moving. Search Mercedes-Benz Vito to find a deal near you.
Welcome inside Rachel's mind. She's unsure if now's the time to sell her home.
Should we stay put or sell up? Wait. It's definitely best to wait.
Relax, Rachel. Purple Bricks has sold more homes than any other estate agent for 2 years running. Purple Bricks. You'll be totally sold.
Independent sales data from 20CI, May 17, April 19. Fixed fee payable on instruction or after 10 months viewing services cost extra.
LBC's Election Call with Eddie Mair. Text 84855.
It's Chris Philp from the Conservatives, and another Chris is on the line from Barnet. Chris, what's your question, please?
Good evening. My question is, does Chris think that taking 20 or more police officers off the streets, has that contributed towards knife crime and violent crime and put the burden on the remainder of the police force to the extent that they can't cope, and also closing all these police stations down?
Yeah, well, Chris, that's a good question. So if you look at the police numbers, between 2010 and about 2015, take London as an example, you're calling from Barnet in London, crime in London, actually including knife crime, went down during that period, despite the fact that savings had to be made. Right, and so it is possible, actually, to reduce crime.
My son was murdered, Chris. Don't tell me that.
Yeah.
I met Boris Johnson many years ago, and I shook his hand outside the Carluccio's in Richmond, and I told him he was doing a bad job then. And he disappeared without talking to me, and what I was going to talk to him about was the fact that he took the police officers down. In 2002, my son was murdered.
2002?
Yes, but apart from that, Chris, you must accept the mistakes you make, and saving money is not a primary issue. It's people's lives, and I don't think that this government is doing enough to show that they do care about the public. And I think what the Wasby lady was saying was another issue, that this government tends to think of the monetary issues to save money, and that they don't really care about the public. So why should we trust you to put you in government again?
Well, I'm terribly, terribly sorry to hear about your son in 2002. I'm really sorry to hear that. Have my sympathy and my thoughts. Look, I mean, crime, so I can understand why you're raising the point, obviously. Crime overall has come down by about a third in the last 9 years, although some kinds of crime, like knife crime, haven't. The number of murders...
Crime fell for many years across Western Europe and around the world.
Yeah, it did, including in this country during the last 9 years. Fell by a third, 9.5 million offences down to 6.5 million offences. The murder rate's been about constant at around about in the mid-600s for the last 10 years.
You stopped at 2015 when you talked about knife crime.
Yes, knife specifically, so general crime, total crime, has continued to go down, actually. Knife crime specifically hasn't. There is an issue with knife crime, particularly in London and in big cities.
And Chris's question was, essentially, what effect do you think taking 20,000 police off the beat had on knife crime?
Well, I mean, during that 5-year period, most of which, well, in fact, all of which time Boris Johnson was Mayor of London, crimes, including knife crime, went down. Clearly, there has been, in the last couple of years, a different trend, and it's now we need to respond to that. So the reasonable question is, so what are we going to do about it? How are we going to respond to it in the future? And there's 2 or 3 things that we propose to do to make sure that other people don't have the terrible experience that Chris did back in 2002. One of those is the extra police officers, many of which, of course, will come to London. We're also proposing to make sure that when someone is given a jail sentence for a serious offence, they spend much more of that jail sentence in prison. At the moment, often they get released halfway through, and the public expect people to serve more of their sentence in jail. And of course, if a serious criminal's in jail, they can't be murdering somebody. The prevention piece is important as well, like stopping people getting into this cycle of gang violence in the first place. There's some more money going into that. But I've been working specifically with some charities in South London. For example, there's one called Ballers, which the Home Office is now funding, which looks to get typically young men off the streets into constructive activity like serious football training, trying to get them into youth academies, clubs like Crystal Palace and Millwall and elsewhere. So they've got a focus rather than sort of falling into the kind of gang network, which some of them do. So I think it's about more police. It's about better sentencing, which we're doing. And that's one of my areas of responsibility at the Ministry of Justice. But it's also about prevention.
Okay.
Financially supporting charities like Ballers.
Thank you for your thoughts on that. I want to move on to another Chris. It's a great quarter for Chris's. Chris in Richmond, what's your question for Chris Philp?
Chris, good evening. Two questions. Do you believe that we should treat public servants consistently in terms of their behaviour?
Should we treat public servants consistently?
So if someone does something wrong and they do the similar offence in one job to another, do you agree that if someone makes a racist comment, for example, they should be treated with the same condition, whether irrespective of what their role is and what level they are in any part of the government?
Well, obviously each case, I mean, in principle, broadly speaking, yes, but clearly each individual case will have its own facts.
Right, so if tomorrow and the head of the Immigration Service wrote a paper describing Muslim women with burqas as letterboxes, or an immigration officer at Heathrow, Gatwick or any other airport in this country said that to members of the public, what would you expect to happen to that person's job? Would they be fired, or would they keep their job?
Well, I imagine there'd be the facts and the circumstances would get looked at.
Forget about the facts and circumstances. Let's say they say it. Let's say they say it's on camera or it's in printed in writing. There's no doubt in the court of law.
Okay.
that what they've done is exactly what they've done.
Let's sort of cut to the chase. You're obviously referring to Boris Johnson's article in the Telegraph from September 2018.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's
answer my question.
So let's
hear the question.
Well, I think he's asked the question. So the article, you've got to read the article as a whole, and the case that Boris Johnson was actually making in the article that you're getting to was actually saying that Muslim women who wear the burqa or the niqab should have the freedom to do so.
And to be clear, this is separate from the Bum Boys article.
Okay, is it? I haven't actually read it, that particular reference. But the case he was making was that Muslim women should have the freedom to wear the niqab or the burqa, which in some European countries they do not have. So, the case he was making was a liberal case.
The other Chris wants to interrupt. Too many Chris's, but Chris on the phone. You go ahead.
Sorry, I mean, let's be clear about this. There have been Muslim women videoed being attacked and their burqa ripped off them in public in London.
Which
Just
is
Google it and you will find it. So how can you put... No, I'm sorry, that is factually correct.
No,
the reality...
No, I know, I was agreeing with you. That act is wrong. Clearly they shouldn't be attacked.
Exactly. So how can you claim that Boris Johnson is talking about freedom of speech when actually it's going to make Muslim women, or is making Muslim women, more unsafe on our capital city? You can't have it both ways, Chris.
Well, I'm not trying to. I mean, but Boris Johnson, to be fair to him, has consistently condemned Islamophobia, but he's also stood up.
Apologised.
But he stood up. Hang on a sec. He has stood up, and the article you're referring to was standing up for the right of Muslim women to wear whatever clothes they want to. That is a right that in many European countries they don't have.
And then simultaneously inciting thugs and Tommy Robinson-like people to go and beat people up.
Look, he certainly was not inciting anything like that at all. Well, he was making the case. He was making the case for the Muslim women to wear the clothes they want to wear. He was standing up for their rights. He definitely wasn't inciting anything.
Well, I think that there's a charity that Eddie may well have heard of as well called Tell Mama, which is against Islamophobia. They said there was a 375% increase in hate crimes towards Muslim people as a result, following that particular article. What do you say to that, Chris?
Well, I haven't seen those figures, but Boris Johnson has been consistent in his position, condemning Islamophobia, standing up for the right of Muslim women to wear whatever they want, which is an important civil freedom.
All right.
And he's been a consistent champion of that cause.
Chris, you've had a good go. Let me bring Luke in now from Barking. Hello, Luke.
Hi, hello. Sorry, my quick question. What's your government's plan on removing fire retardant material, i.e. cladding and so forth, from either high-rise buildings? Well, just high-rise building.
Yeah, well, clearly, where there's flammable cladding, in particular ACM cladding that was on the Grenfell Tower, the aim is to get that off as quickly as possible. A huge amount of money. I think it's over.
Still hasn't happened in lots of buildings.
So £600 million has been made available for
that's clearly not enough. What are you going to do?
For public...
So can I ask, so my building, I lost my home in June of this year due to fire retardant material on the outside.
Was that a housing association property or council? Was it private? Or
it was private.
Tell me about the circumstances.
Okay. And the builders who developed the property stated that because the building was below 18 metres, it was legal. Obviously, since Grenfell, the decision was made that any form of fire retardant material, particularly ACM, but any form of fire retardant material should be removed. Now, 2 years after it happened, after Grenfell, it's happened, and ever since, basically one every month since June has happened due to fire retardant material predominantly. The facts of mine was that it was a wooden balcony, and due to the neighbour having a fire on their balcony, it spread and engulfed my whole building, which was over 8 floors, in 7 minutes.
And whereabouts was that, Luke?
In Barking.
And presumably the fire service attended quickly, did they?
They did. It took them 6 minutes and 45 seconds from the call being made, and within that time, the building was destroyed or engulfed enough that it was not going to...
Which brings us back to Luke's question. What are you going to do to remove flammable cladding from buildings?
Which illustrates the importance of the point. So there's different kinds of buildings, obviously. So for buildings that are either owned by the local authorities, by councils, or owned by housing associations, the government has already funded or provided the funding to do all of those. Right, no questions, it's just going to get done. And that process is very, very well advanced. For privately owned buildings, and that sounds like it probably, Luke, includes the one that you were living in at the time, obviously they're trying to get the developers to do it or looking at whether the contractor should do it. But there is also money being made available now to do the last remaining ones of those as well. And it needs to happen as soon as possible. And I think, Luke, your story illustrates exactly why this is so important.
Doesn't it? Thank you so much, Luke, for the call. Thanks to you, Chris Philp, for being part of Election Call tonight. We'll be back tomorrow from 4 with the programme Election Call from 6. Tom Swarbrick is here from 10. Now, here is Ian Dale.
Eddie, thank you very much. Well, Labour have been on the attack today on their favourite subject, the NHS. They're alleging that documents which they've obtained prove that the government is planning to privatise the NHS or sell it off to the Americans. Boris Johnson immediately repudiated the allegations and said the NHS would not be on the table for negotiations with any trade talks. Does this cut through with you if you're a swing voter? Do you believe Jeremy Corbyn when he says the NHS is up for sale, or do you believe Boris Johnson's denials? We're talking about that after 10 and in the